Okay, guys, welcome. Today we're going to talk about the algebra of functions, and basically what we mean by that is how do we add, subtract, multiply, or divide two given functions. So this video will be fairly short, so hopefully it's not too hard to follow. But the idea that we're going to discuss is we're being given two functions, f and g, and we're assuming that x is part of the domain of both functions. That means that we can plug x into either function without anything bad happening. Then the way that we define all four of our basic arithmetic operations is just how you think they would work. So if you want to add two functions, what do? Well, you take the first function and you add it to the second one. So this first one is pretty straightforward. The second one, the only thing you really have to be careful with is when you find the difference of two functions, just make sure that you distribute the negative to the second one, to the second function. If you want to find the product of two functions, you would just use the distributive property or FOIL to find what that product would be. And then the other thing would, of course, be the quotient of two functions. And here you just have to do a little bit more bookkeeping as far as making sure that your denominator, of course, is non-zero. And usually at this point, you would want to try and factor and simplify as well. If possible. All right, but let's do a couple of examples and we'll just see what this looks like. So in the first example, we're being given that f of x is x squared minus x plus 3 and g of x is x plus 2. So part A is asking us to find f plus g of x. So by our first rule up here, we're just taking f of x and we're adding it to g of x. So of course, this is just a matter of writing down what each one is. All right, so I don't have subtraction, so I don't really need to worry about parentheses here. This, of course, is coming from f of x, and this is coming from g of x. And now we just need to combine like terms, right? So it looks like I only have the x squared term as far as a second power term, so we're just going to bring that over. And then it looks like I have a minus x and a plus x, so they're actually going to cancel each other out. And then for the 3 and the 2, they will, of course, together give you 5. So that tells us that if we add these two functions, we'll get x squared plus 5. Now, part B, we're finding the difference. So, of course, this is just taking f of x and subtracting g of x. And of course, you just have to be a little bit more careful in this case. And you want to make sure that that second function is in a set of parentheses so that we can distribute the negative. Now this will become a minus x minus 2. And I didn't do anything with this yet. So again, this first part is coming from f, and this second part is coming from g. So now if we combine like terms, it looks like, again, nothing happens to x squared. And then we have a minus x and a minus x. So together they are minus 2x. And then we have a plus 3 and a minus 2. So together they are plus 1. Okay. Now in part C, they're asking us to find the reverse of this. So in this case, we want g of x minus f of x. So g of x is, of course, x plus 2. And then I need to make sure that my f is in parentheses. So x squared minus x plus 3. Okay, so then when we distribute our negative, this will become minus x squared. And then a minus times a minus x will be a plus x. And minus times positive 3 is now minus 3. And of course, we didn't do anything to x plus 2. So now when we combine like terms, it looks like we have a negative x squared, and then we have plus x and another positive x. So together they are plus 2x. And then we have plus 2 and minus 3. So together they are minus 1. Okay, so that basically demonstrates the first two rules. We're finding sum and differences. Okay, so let's look at another example. Now, in this example, there's really a couple different ways that we could do these, right? Because we're given f of x is x squared minus 16 and g of x is x minus 4. And by definition, we could say that f plus g of 3 is f of 3 plus g of 3. So this is one way we could do it. So what's f of 3? Well, that's what we get when we plug in a 3 into f. So we'll get a 3 squared minus 16. So 9 minus 16. So negative 7. And g of 3 is 3 minus 4. So negative 1. And if we add these together, we'll get a negative 8. So that's one way you could do it. Another way you could do it is to first find f plus g of x and then plug in 3 later. So if we plug in, or sorry, if we just find f plus g, we'll get an x squared minus 16 plus x minus 4. So altogether we get x squared plus x minus 20. And if we now plug in 3, well, then we'll get 9 plus 3 minus 20, which is also negative 8. So of course you could do it either one of these ways. It just turns out whichever way is easier, that's of course the way that you would prefer to do it. Okay, let's look at part B. Now part B, we could do something similar. So we could say that this is either f of 5 times g of 5, or you could find f times g of x and then plug in 5 later. I'm going to do it the first way just for fun. So if we find f of 5, again, f of x was x squared minus 16. So if we plug in 5, we'll get 25 minus 16. So we'll get 9. If we plug in for g, and of course g of x was x minus 4. So we have g of 5 would be 5 minus 4, and we get 1. So if we multiply those together, we of course get 9. And of course, you could verify that if you were to do it the other way, you would also get 9. We won't do it here just for time's sake, but you can and should verify that that will also give you 9. Okay, one last example in this quick opening video will be to look at dividing. And again, you could do this one of two ways. Let me keep my color coding here. We could either say this is f of 10 over g of 10, or we could say that it's f of x over g of x, and then plug in 10 afterwards. Okay, so how about, since I did it the red way last time, we'll do it the green way this time. Okay, so again, here my f of x is x squared minus 16, and my g of x is x minus 4. So then f over g, f of x over g of x, is equal to x squared minus 16 over x minus 4. Now, of course, we could simplify this because the top can be factored into x plus 4, x minus 4. And of course, that would allow us to cancel the 4s and give us x plus 4 as long as x is not equal to positive 4 because of this. Okay, but now we can plug in 10, and we'll get 10 plus 4, which is 14. And of course, you can verify it the other way again, that if you were to plug this in, you will also get 14 as well. Okay, so that wraps up this video on the algebra of functions. Hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time.